When I use the term or the phrase throne of God, I'm talking about the power within each of us to live life more abundantly through various means, but essentially through self-empowerment and the knowledge of self-sovereignty. And you can achieve that through various methods of meditation, prayer, pranayama, breathing. But by and large, the pathway to the throne of God is through knowledge. And I equate knowledge with light and ignorance with darkness. And knowledge is what Yeshua brought to the peoples of his time when he walked the earth as in a physical incarnation. And his express purpose was to come in fulfillment of the law so that people may live life more abundantly. The law that people were living in at the time of Yeshua was a dominating law of the Torah, of the Old Testament. And I'm going to share some words from Yeshua that speak to the very different quality of teachings, the energetic quality. If you change your vibration, you change your reality, you move your energetic focus, your luminous essence is liberated, is ascended. And this is all through knowledge. And I want to share these words with Yeshua, and then I'm going to get on to some other topics. But I want you to understand fully that nowhere has it been made clear in your New Testament that I brought a teaching completely opposed to the teachings in the Old Testament. And therefore, the New Testament as a true record of my life and teachings cannot be trusted or accepted or believed. Let me repeat that. And therefore, the New Testament as a true record of my life and teachings cannot be trusted or accepted or believed. A true and accurate record of my personality, enlightened nature, emotional attitudes, and teachings themselves would have made it abundantly clear that the old Judaic forms of religion and my enlightened teachings were diametrically opposed in every way. The Judaic religion was one of extreme materialistic concepts. There are certainly writings from which spiritually enlightened Jews drew and continue to draw a mystical perception of our source of being. A mystical perception of our source of being. Now, as I mentioned, the phrase, the throne of God, is your godly nature empowered, sitting within focus, control, ability to manifest your intent into this reality. And the dominating mind, which is essentially being seated within the throne of God, the dominating mind banishes self-consciousness. Labels tend to separate us, begin to fragment us. Source, God, is all, the law of one. Satan, the adversarial energy, fragments, it labels, it likes to dissect. The ego likes to dissect, label, and fragment your consciousness through labels. And the dominating mind banishes self-consciousness. Dear viewer, you are self-conscious when you doubt your ability to please or control others. When you are focused, relaxed, and confident, you are in the throne of God. Prayer, meditation, silence, and a loving attitude towards yourself flows out into the collective, and all benefit from your transcendent nature sitting within the throne of God. Now, labels, even within the teachings of the law of one, I want to share with you how the idea of good and bad and how all of this labeling of service to self, service to others, plagues the throne of God. How it plagues your equanimity. How it plagues your center of love. How it begins to fragment your consciousness into fear-based, overly preponderance of ego dissection. The ideas are clear. The growth of the soul is the one purpose of our I believe it is our single most important purpose. It is the be-all, end-all of why we're here in this density of third density. The growth of the soul is our purpose. And there are two paths that merge, and you can choose one, but labeling one as good and labeling one as bad, you throw yourself off the path. These are simply ways to move through existence. One is not negative or positive in this moral sense, this ethical dissecting sense, which flows from organized religion, which organized religion is of Satan. The separation, the segregation of service to self, service to other individuals is disgusting. And this should be seriously examined in your own life and within your own thinking, because how else can you be of any benefit if you're caught up in these external labels? Your mind, your consciousness is at that point removed from the throne of God. The service to self path is required for creating diverse and challenging environments for growth. This service to other path is required for creating safe and nurturing environments for growth. And you have this within your own life. You go through cycles of it where you're a little bit more chaotic, and then you kind of pull back into nurturing environments. You set up, you take all the lessons you've learned from your chaos, and you bring them back into a nurturing environment for your consciousness to expand. And this becomes a beast when you're overly concerned about labeling others. But if you stay focused in your own throne of God, within your own focus of love, meaning that you are focused on the safety of your environment for your own expansion of consciousness, then it flows out to all this equanimity flows out into the collective, and a collective benefit for everyone. And the law of one, simply, if you can get away from this whole service to others, service to self path, and begin to take on some of the terminology that Carlos Castaneda, who was a controversial figure, the teachings of Don Juan, Carlos Castaneda, and there's a reason for that. Carlos Castaneda has been called one of the most controversial figures in the history of anthropology. And that's because the academic circles, the peoples, they recognize the power of these teachings, of taking everything away from labels and beginning to provide power to the individual through getting away from all of this duality thinking. And essentially, Carlos Castaneda was maligned within academic circles because he was bringing forth ancient knowledge that was truly self-empowering. And so when you get away from labels of good and bad and evil, and you begin to think about the four moods that everybody has, all of us within this third dimensional construct experience the four moods, as Castaneda talked about: ruthlessness, cunning, patience, sweetness, and the combination thereof. These four moods, ruthlessness, cunning, patience, sweetness, define pretty much what we all go through in living our life and living it successfully, keeping in mind that the purpose is for the expansion of the soul. If you are getting caught up in ruts and the sameness routine, then your soul is not being provided any opportunities for expansion and growth. And that is what I believe, and that is what I'm maintaining and sending forth this message, that our purpose is to grow our souls. When you get in organized religion and it's, one day a week you go to church and you hear the same message and you're kind of put in this routine, that is evil to your soul, to your own spirituality. Jesus did not die for your sins. Okay? That is spiritual laziness, and you must take it upon yourself to renew yourself and put in perspective your little ego and how it gets in the way of your soul expansion and your soul growth. Kia-Shatach Saradesi. And this is language of old knowledge, of Lemurian Mu. This Ravenous for the black waters of life to enter into, which can only be drawn with the voice. Many speak, but say nothing. To speak from the shallow cup of the little self, of your little fragmented ego, depletes our supply of true source connection to life. It takes us from our throne of God, the throne of godliness, to communicate from the wellspring of existence, feeds immortality. You feed the growth of your soul. The day is the time for religion. The night is the time for sorcery. In occult lore, the moon is older than earth and is dead. It is the ego. It is the dead body of your little animal self. The moon is a giant luminescent corpse in the sky. It exerts malign, undead influence on the earth. The time of the moon, the darkness of night, is associated with sorcery. The daytime, and this is an oversimplistic use of labels once again, but this helps to understand our collective reality and how the assemblage point is an energetic structure within the luminous energy field where we decode all our supersensory experiences, from deja vu to precognition to bliss and love to having a sense of foreboding about something or someone, and to knowing that the telephone is going to ring before it actually does. But this is essentially a way to think about yourself beyond the common labels of good and bad, service to self, service to others, good and evil, so on and so forth. But if you begin to think of your meat puppet, your body, and how that path is associated with the moon and nighttime, and the daytime with your energetic self, your soul self, your solar self, and thus the expansion of your soul. But see, this all works. This was all beautifully concocted, thought out, designed, and executed, because previously in the Atlantean age, consciousness could just decide, well, this living in this physical body is just too much. I want to check out and go back to my source, awareness, my freedom of energy. Well, it was designed to put us in these bodies to learn our lessons and to not have it so easy. And the energetic self, when it's put in with the meat self, the lower third dimension self, you begin to experience lessons. Your soul begins to understand because it is tied energetically into your physical self. So when something traumatic happens within your physical body, the energy self, which is immortal, it gets an intimation of the lesson, and it begins to expand. It begins to say, well, perhaps doing things this way is resulting in this type of experience, so I'm going to move on. Now, granted, there are people who begin to use energy, the energy of intelligent infinity, in certain ways, and they use it perhaps to dominate others. We're seeing that now in this third dimension reality with a group that has been in power on this planet for a long time, who has used their knowledge to dominate and keep in servitude many people. And we're going to see as this week goes along that there's going to be much more revelations. There's going to be a few arrests that are made with people that are going to shock the normies. From beyond the rapper that was P. Diddy that was arrested to higher level people being arrested associated with this satanic matrix of control, of keeping in bondage these other souls and that's the great crime, is keeping people at a bondage level where their souls have been hypnotized by this 3D reality and not given an opportunity to continue to grow and expand. Organized religion is another monster that has prevented people from their true expansion into the light. So just kind of keeping on with this mental domination concept, and a lot of it has to do with labels and getting away from labels and thinking about things more in terms of energy versus this lower density, this lower vibration of energy of matter, and which is the least important, really, at the end of the day. Your soul could have opportunities for expansion And it's not so much dependent on your physical reality. You can live in a mansion or live in a cardboard box. And I would dare say living in a cardboard box would give you more opportunities for soul expansion if you understood the nature of the reality that we live in. Because being ensorcelled, being hypnotized by the nighttime, by the material reality, prevents you from those lessons in energetic soul expansion and keeping you sitting within the throne of God. Namaste, namaskar.